I shouldn't have judged a man wearing a tiny plastic crown, but I stood on his porch, trying not to laugh at the sparkly pink tiara perched on his dark hair. The late afternoon sun caught the plastic gems, sending little rainbow prisms dancing across his scowling face. "Can I help you?" His voice matched his appearance, gruff, no nonsense, probably permanently set to annoyed mode. The wooden porch boards creaked under his weight as he shifted, crossing his arms over his chest. I couldn't help it, I giggled. "I'm Samantha, your neighbor, and you must be Princess Dad of the Year?" I knew I'd messed up when the words left my mouth. His jaw tightened, and those forest green eyes turned stormy. A muscle twitched in his cheek. "Great job, Samantha. Way to make friends with the new neighbor," I thought. "It's Carl, actually." "If you're done making fun of me," he started, but a small voice piped behind him. "Daddy, you promised to finish our tea party." A little girl, maybe 7, peeked around his legs. She wore a matching crown and clutched a stuffed unicorn that had definitely seen better days. One of its eyes hung by a thread and its purple mane was matted with love. "The cookies are getting cold, and Mr. Sprinkles is waiting." "In a minute, sweetheart," he said, his voice softening just for her before turning back to me with that granite expression. "What do you want?" I straightened my spine, remembering why I'd come. "Your dog's been digging up my flower beds." "Again?" "The ones my grandfather planted. The ones that have been there for 20 years, that he tenderly grew from seeds, that..." I stopped myself, realizing I was getting emotional over daisies and black-eyed Susans. "Leo," he called over his shoulder, and a golden retriever bounded up, tail wagging like it was trying to achieve liftoff. Mud still clung to its paws. "This troublemaker?" "That's the one." "Look, I'm not trying to be difficult, but those flowers mean a lot to me." My fingers twisted together, a nervous habit I'd never managed to break. "Leo's just being friendly. Maybe if you weren't always alone in that big house, you wouldn't mind some company dropping by." He looked past me toward the Victorian house I'd inherited from my grandfather. My cheeks burned. "Excuse me? You don't know anything about me or my house. Just because I live alone doesn't mean I'm lonely. And it definitely doesn't give your dog the right to destroy my property." "Daddy," the little girl tugged at his shirt, leaving tiny wrinkles in the fabric, "that's not very nice. You told me we should always be kind to our neighbors." He had the grace to look somewhat ashamed, running a hand through his hair and nearly dislodging the princess crown. The sight would have been funny if I wasn't so angry. Before either of us could say anything else, the girl spoke again. "I'm Mandy. Do you want to join our tea party? We have real cookies, Daddy and I baked them. Mr. Sprinkles would love to meet you." She hugged the unicorn tighter, hope shining in her eyes. I shook my head, backing away. The porch steps creaked under my feet. "Thanks, but I should go. Just, please keep your dog in your yard." I turned and walked away, hearing Mandy's disappointed sigh behind me, followed by her father's murmur of consolation. That was my first meeting with Carl, and it set the tone for the next few weeks. Every interaction seemed to spark a new disagreement. His early morning wood chopping interrupted my sunrise yoga, then my chickens escaped into his yard. We were like two porcupines doing an awkward dance, all prickly defenses and sharp words. The morning choir of his chainsaw would send me storming to the window, where I'd catch glimpses of him working, shirt sleeves rolled up, showing forearms corded with muscle. Not that I was looking. And sometimes, when my Zen playlist drifted through the open windows during my yoga sessions, I'd catch him watching from his yard, his expression unreadable. "Your music's disturbing, Leo," he called out one morning. I switched to heavy metal for the next session. The dog, traitor that he was, just wagged his tail as Carl shot me a dark look. It seemed like we were constantly on the verge of war until the day everything changed. The frantic pounding on my door came just as I was finishing up work, the sound so urgent it made me jump. When I opened it, Mandy stood there, her breath coming in hiccuping gasps. Please help, she sobbed, Daddy's hurt. In the forest. My first thought was uncharitable, serve him right, but one look at Mandy's face pushed that aside. What happened? I asked. We were walking and he fell. He hurt his leg, she gulped between words. Please, you have to help. The sun was already starting to sink, painting the sky in watercolor shades of pink and gold. Soon, it would be dark, and the forecast had mentioned storms. I would have gladly let Carl limp home in a thunderstorm, but I couldn't bear to see Mandy so upset. Okay, sweetie. I grabbed my phone and a flashlight from the drawer beside the door. Show me where. We headed into the forest, Mandy leading the way until she wasn't. She stopped at a fork in the path, spinning in circles, panic rising in her voice. I can't remember, everything looks different now. Hey, it's okay. I kneeled beside her. You know, when I was about your age, I got lost in these woods with my grandfather. Want to know what he taught me? She nodded, a tear rolling down her cheek. I wiped it away with my thumb. He said to look for special things, landmarks. Did you see anything unusual near where your dad is? Maybe a weird-shaped tree, or a big rock. Mandy's face scrunched in concentration. There was a tree that looked like a giant Y. With a rock in the middle. She demonstrated with her arms, and despite the situation, I had to smile. The split oak. Good girl, Mandy. This way. I took her hand, leading her down the left path. The old oak was a local landmark, one I'd used as a marker countless times during walks with my grandfather. We found Carl at the bottom of a shallow gully. When I saw the weird angle of his bent leg, I realized his hurt leg was a lot more serious than I first thought. He was conscious but pale, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cooling air. Samantha? He sounded surprised, and then his eyes found Mandy. Baby, I told you to go straight home and get my phone. She rushed to his side, careful not to touch his injured leg while shaking her head. I was scared, Daddy, and I knew Miss Samantha would help us. I was already dialing 911, rattling off our location and the nature of the injury. The dispatcher's calm voice helped steady my nerves. When I hung up, I told them both, help's coming, but it'll be about an hour. Carl grimaced, shifting slightly and immediately regretting it. You don't have to stay. Actually, I do. Standard wilderness first aid, never leave an injured person alone. I sat down beside him. Plus, your daughter's scared, and you're in no shape to comfort her properly. Thunder rumbled in the distance because, of course, it did. Perfect. Daddy? Mandy's voice quavered, and she pressed closer to him. It's okay, princess. But I could see the fear in his eyes, not for himself, but for her. What would happen to her if something happened to him? The thought seemed to hang in the air, unspoken but heavy as the approaching storm clouds. As the rain started pattering through the leaves, we huddled closer, sharing my jacket. I told Mandy stories to distract her, and eventually, she calmed down. I'm sorry, Carl said suddenly, his voice low enough that Mandy, now drowsing against his shoulder, couldn't hear. About before. The princess crown comment, I thought you were mocking me. I wasn't. It was cute. Unexpected, but cute. Very secure in your masculinity of you. He chuckled, then winced. Being a single dad, people judge and I get defensive. Especially about the tea parties. But they're important to Mandy, so you wear the crown and pour the tea. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to be proud of. The conversation flowed easier after that, punctuated by rumbles of thunder and Mandy's occasional questions. By the time help arrived, something had shifted between us, like the earth had tilted slightly on its axis. Over the next few weeks, I spent more time at Carl's house than my own. Officially, I was helping out while he recovered. driving him to physical therapy, bringing over meals, and helping Mandy with her homework. Unofficially, I was falling hard for both him and Mandy. Then came the evening I spotted the unfamiliar car across from their house. "It's Tanya's car," Carl told me later, his voice tight as a bowstring. We sat on his back porch, watching Mandy play with Leo in the yard. She's Mandy's mother. She left when Mandy was 4 and now she's back, saying she wants to try again. My heart lurched. "What do you want?" "To protect my daughter," he said, a growl slipping into his voice. "Tanya's unstable. She tried to take Mandy out of the country last time, that's why she lost all custody rights. She just disappeared one day. No note, no warning. Mandy kept asking when Mommy was coming home, and I had no answers." He swallowed hard. 6 months later, Tanya shows up with this guy, demanding full custody. When the court said no, she tried to take Mandy, anyway. Got as far as the Canadian border before they caught them. The setting sun painted everything in shades of gold, but I felt cold. And now she's back. She left a letter in my mailbox saying she broke up with him and wants to be a family again. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Like we're some TV show she can pick up where she left off. I notified the cops, but they say there isn't much they can do about it. I should have walked away. This was messy and complicated, exactly the kind of drama I'd always avoided. Instead, I reached over to pat his hand and told him, "Then I'll keep an eye out for that car. We'll protect Mandy together." He looked at me then like he was seeing something new. "You don't have to get involved in this." I mumbled something about good neighbors looking out for each other, still unwilling to admit it was far more personal than that. The crisis came sooner than expected. I was heading over with chicken soup when I heard Mandy scream. I looked in her direction and saw a woman trying to drag Mandy toward a car. "Let her go." I didn't think, just reacted. I rushed forward and let loose with the only weapon at my disposal. The soup flew, splashing over the woman and making her release Mandy with a shriek. "Who the hell are you?" she demanded, wiping soup from her face. Her mascara ran in dark streaks, making her look slightly deranged. "Someone who cares about them." I pulled Mandy behind me, hearing sirens approaching. Carl must have called them the moment he saw Tanya. He appeared in the doorway, moving as fast as his healing leg would allow, his crutch forgotten inside. "You can't keep her from me." Tanya lunged forward. Leo appeared out of nowhere, placing himself between us and her, his usual friendly demeanor replaced by a low growl. "Actually, the court order does exactly that," Carl said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "And now you've violated it. Again." The police arrived then, and everything happened quickly. Tanya alternated between threats and tears as they led her away. Mandy clung to Carl and me, shaking but trying to be brave. Later, after the police left with Tanya in custody, after we'd answered questions and filed reports, and after Mandy finally fell asleep clutching our hands, Carl and I sat on his porch. "I've been so afraid," he admitted, staring out into the darkness. "Of trusting, of letting anyone close enough to hurt us again. After Tanya, I built walls. High ones. I get that. I've been afraid too. Of losing my last connection to my grandfather, of changing anything about his house. Of letting anyone else in." I looked down at our hands, somehow intertwined without my noticing. "But maybe it's time for both of us to be brave." "You already were brave," he said softly. "With Tanya, with Mandy, with me." "Yeah, well, who could resist a man in a princess crown?" He grinned and squeezed my hand. "Speaking of which, there's a tea party tomorrow. Mr. Sprinkle specifically requested your presence." "Did he now?" Very insistent about it. Something about needing someone to help him convince Mandy that the cookie jar is not a good hiding place for her homework." I laughed, leaning against his shoulder. Well, we can't disappoint Mr. Sprinkles. No, he agreed, turning to kiss me softly. We can't. I'll be there, Princess Dad, I whispered against Carl's lips, and this time when I said it, he smiled. Write in the comments what would you have done and subscribe to our channel D-Damn Mix.